And the topic of today I'm gonna be talking about is based on a video I watched recently. It was an interview with this actor named Michael J. White, and I think the host was asking him about Tupac. Then he said something along the line about how him and Tupac used to hang out back during the 90s, and he noticed something about Tupac, that he had a sort of like alter ego. So essentially, Tupac used to act a gangster in front of black people, but when he felt safe around Michael J. White, he started being himself again. He basically dropped that persona and started acting the way he actually was. And according to Michael J. White, the true Tupac was nothing like the character he was playing in those songs. The notion of how he had a hard life and how he was a thug and how he had to survive that violent environment, it was all bluff, basically. The guy seems like he graduated from an art school. He was creative, he was artistic, he was very open-minded kid, very smart, very intelligent. He had the talent, but when it comes to this notion of him being a sort of street hustler, a thug, a gangbanger, it's complete nonsense. And according to Michael J. White, that's what led to his death, which is very sad. And then I'm listening to him talking about this issue, and I'm kind of like sense how the host is resisting or defending the narrative. And then it suddenly clicked in my mind, because I thought about this way before. I thought about it, I was just like by myself one time, and here comes this thought I had about another rapper, another famous icon in this hip-hop genre, which is Eminem. And I'm looking at Eminem, and I'm looking at 50 Cent. And we know for a fact that 50 Cent does have a history with the criminal underworld. We know that he was a gangbanger. We know that he was making money from selling drugs. We know that he was fatherless, and he was actually struggling in order to make it out of poverty. So the man was actually part of that world before joining the music industry. And then I'm asking myself this question: 50 Cent is truly a gangster. But what is Eminem? Was he ever involved in any kind of criminal activities? Was he a part of any kind of set? Did he sell drugs? I mean, I know that he was drug addict, but that doesn't make from him a gangbanger. That doesn't make from him a part of any kind of criminal organization. And I was kind of a little bit confused, like, what is Eminem? He's an artist. Is he talented? Of course he's talented. He's a gifted, talented, skillful artist. But what is missing from this particular individual? I couldn't find the answer. Then I'm going back to Michael J. White interview, and then things start falling in place. And I'm like, oh, I see now. I see what is going on. This is not real. And I am sorry about that. I'm sorry that you're going to hear that from me. But hey, this is a conversation that the black community should have had way ago. I can believe that people are so quiet, especially the older ones, the older generations. They are so quiet about this very serious issue within the culture of the black community. Just to let you know, I am not black. I'm not white either. I'm foreign born. I'm not from the United States. But hey, I did also grow up following the American pop culture. I was listening to a lot of that type of music. I grew up listening to hip hop, American hip hop, French hip hop, and even hip hop from my country. And I can tell you one thing: the issue is global. This bullshit narrative about how you are supposed to have a sort of criminal background or sort of history of violence, or being a sort of a thug as a prerequisite in order to make it into this specific music genre. This needs to stop. This needs to stop because it's very wrong. Think about it. We all play video games, right? We do play video games. We did play GTA. I've been playing GTA since GTA 3 and PS2. I beat the game. I had a lot of fun. I played Vice City. I played San Andreas. I didn't never play the most recent ones, but it doesn't matter because I know about the franchise. I had a lot of fun playing the game. I think it's a good game. I don't think it's a masterpiece, but it's definitely one of the best games out there. I think the story is interesting. I think the gameplay is interesting. I think you have a lot of fun playing such a game, a good experience. But my question to you is, when was the last time you heard any kind of interview with the video game designer of the GTA franchise, and you see the host challenging him and asking him if he has any kind of background in the criminal underworld, like being a mafia member, to have any kind of authority in order to write a script about that world. I personally never hear something like that. You never hear anybody challenging the video game designer of GTA about not being a former mafia member in order to create a game about crime or about violence. Same thing when it comes to movies. You can pick any of the most popular franchises, something like John Wick. Nobody asks if Keanu Reeves or somebody like Denzel Washington in The Equalizer. You never ask them about, oh, you never killed people in the real world. You don't walk as a one-man army and slaughter an entire criminal Russian organization with your bare hands or with weapons. You are fake. This is bullshit. I never hear shit like that. I never hear this kind of argument. Only when it comes to this very specific medium of hip-hop genre that this conversation starts. I see a similar argument going on with some kind of the martial artist actors. You know, things like Bruce Lee, Jet Li. People want to have this conversation about what would Bruce Lee or Van Damme do in a real life situation. Would they be able to beat a whole gang by themselves? A type of bullshit. Or you see them being compared to some kind of professional sport fighter, like a boxer. Oh, can Bruce Lee beat Mike Tyson? Can Bruce Lee beat, I don't know, Conor McGregor? Like, who gives a shit? Those are completely two different mediums. Why are you even comparing apple to orange? Bruce Lee wasn't a sport fighter. And even hypothetically, if we say that Bruce Lee was actually a real fighter, a real fight doesn't happen in a boxing ring. There are no cameras in a real fight. A real fight is lethal. It's illegal. Like, based on the current rules of law and order established and enforced by the state, we all know that the monopoly of violence is in the hand of the government and not in the hand of the citizens. Like, those kind of little duels are abolished. They are banned. They are not practiced anymore since the feudal era. So I don't know what you guys are talking about. This is all, like, when you think about it, this is all, it's just pure ignorance, man. It's people who misinterpret what is actually going on. It's a lack of perception, a lack of understanding of things, lack of knowledge and understanding how the professional world works. This is an ignorant casual with no purpose who tryna give his knucklehead opinion about something he has no authority over. So anyway, back to the subject of Tupac and the interview with Michael J. White. Like I'm saying, like, the host is kind of like trying to defend the narrative. And I can understand. Look, the host is just doing his job. He's trying to be as objective as possible because even when I see him talking to other people who are backing up Tupac about this issue of this alter ego, I see him sometimes also taking Michael J. White position in order to challenge the interviewed, and I don't blame him. But what I do blame is when I scroll down and I look at the comment section, I start seeing a lot of butthurt mental gymnastic doers all over the video, and I find it very sad because they don't look young. Like the people who are talking like that, like, oh, I grew up listening to Tupac back when he was my age. Like that means that you're you motherfucker, you should be like in your 40s now. Because if Tupac was still alive to this day, he would be like somewhere around 50. If you grew up watching Tupac, that means that you are at least in your late 30s or early 40s at least. So don't tell me the people who are writing this shit are young kids who don't know what they're talking about. And this tells you all. This tells you everything. Like the man is telling you about his experience with Tupac, that they used to hang out, and he spot the inconsistency. He's telling you that the guy wasn't living the truth, that he was living a lie, but it's just like too painful for your pre-existent narrative. Basically, you just don't want to change your mind. You don't want to admit that your idol was a complete and utter idiot. He was a young kid who was suffering of sort of a identity crisis. And I don't even blame Tupac because Tupac was only 25 years old. I was 25 too. I know what is it like to be confused. I know what is it like to try to find yourself. But if you're an idiot in your late 30s or your 40s and you still haven't figured that shit out by yourself, then I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you, but you are part of the problem. Especially when you go scroll down and type some kind of apologetic, butthurt rant attacking Michael J. White on his career and on his opinion just because he's delivering you some kind of truth your ego is not ready to process. Man, like I'm saying, everybody want to keep it real until the truth is delivered, and now everybody is offended all of a sudden. That's all what it is, you know. Same thing when it comes to most of those rappers. Like I was listening to Biggie last time, and he said something along the line about how the neighbors used to complain about him because he was selling rocks in the neighborhood. And then he followed through and he said something. He continued his verse and he said that all what he was trying to do is to feed his daughter. And then this is the kind of bullshit. Like this, like anybody would in his right mind, he will hear a verse like this and he'll be like, okay, all right, I see what's going on here. Like this guy is selling this label of crime, of violence, because it's profitable, because it's entertaining. And look, there is nothing wrong with it. Like I'm saying, I give you that previous example with the video game industry. There's plenty of violence in the video game industry, and nobody says anything. Okay, same thing when it comes to the big screen, the movies and TV shows. Violence is everywhere. It's a part of the entertainment. That's what people watch. That's what people like. This is not a rant against violence. I need you to understand. This is not an anti-violence rant. This is just me trying to give you a more accurate view about what is actually going on. Because if you go and do your own research about those people, like whether we're talking about Tupac or we're talking about Biggie, we're talking about Eminem or any other hip hop genre icon, most of them, 9 out of 10, have never been affiliated with any kind of criminal organization, any kind of gang. But because the fans are enforcing this narrative, so now becoming affiliated with some kind of crime is sort of
license in order to be endorsed by the fandom. And like I mentioned early on, you don't see that among other mediums, only among this particular genre. Like I said, I give you the other example with the martial artist, same shit. Artists are creative, talented, intelligent people. Okay? Art is a regulated field. Organized crime cannot be regulated. It's illegal. It's predatory type of industry. Like these two mediums, these two fields belong to a completely different paradigms, and they do not coexist. Okay, you can't be a real life criminal and a professional certified artist simultaneously. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, sooner or later, you gotta make your choice. You can't have two personalities. You can't have two lives. Sooner or later, you gotta make your choice. Am I gonna be a professional, successful artist, or I'm gonna join the criminal world? Listen, my point is this: why am I being so harsh in this video? Is because I see plenty of young people, or young men, especially among the black community, but I see them among every community, every ethnicity. Because hip hop, to be honest, right now hip hop is global. Like there is hip hop everywhere. Like you go to third world countries somewhere in, I don't know, like Asia, and you're gonna find hip hop movement taking place within those societies. My point is this: Tupac, Biggie, Eminem, and every other art, like even people like members from Mobb Deep group. These people, most of them are like middle class students. They have education. They grew up in a functional household, and they have no reason to join that world. Look, Tupac is a human being. Okay, he was a kid. Okay, he was influenced by the environment. I understand that there is a sort of peer pressure that as a kid you want to belong to something. You want to be accepted by your fellow classmates or kids you grew up with in the neighborhood. I understand that, but Tupac, like I'm saying, is just a human being. He can also make mistakes. Like this notion of like looking at him as some kind of urban legend, a role model, an icon, is a bad idea. It's a bad idea because what you're basically doing is that you are glorifying the criminal culture. See, back when he was locked up, when he was incarcerated, what happened is that he, based on the documentary I was watching, there was time when he was considering dropping this gangster persona. Because when you're in prison, when you get stuck in a prison cell for a very long period of time, you kind of like getting too much free time, and you can finally start thinking. The brain start thinking. There isn't much to do. So what you start doing is that you start thinking. You start reevaluating your values, thinking about what you're gonna do once you leave prison. Think about if this is all working. You kind of like start seeing the truth. You see how miserable people are in prison, how stupid most of those people are, and you're like, what the fuck am I even doing among these idiots? Especially if you have like if you're an educated student who graduated from a college. Like, what am I doing among these idiots? So you start developing a sense of awareness, of self-awareness. You can't see that you can't affiliate with that culture. You don't belong to that world. But what happened to him, unfortunately, is that Suge Knight show up at the prison and he bailed him out, and he ended up signing with Death Row Record, and by doing so, he's kind of like now back to that shit because Suge Knight is also kind of affiliated with one of the blood sets, and that's how he ended up blowing his career, and so did Biggie. Like those artists, those are unique individuals with exceptional abilities. They shouldn't be blowing their career by getting engaged in that kind of lifestyle. They shouldn't even be around any kind of those people, even when it comes to the professional music world. Like I'm saying, like you're glorifying the culture of crime, and there are kids who are listening to that music and they see you as a role model, and then they end up falling in those in the same pitfall. They ended up either being incarcerated at a young age, like kids going with life sentence. Imagine like 20 years old, an idiot, like who barely understand how the world works, is gonna end up rotting in a prison cell for the next 4 years, or maybe just like getting smoked on the street in a gunfight. Here's the mistake Tupac made. I believe, in my opinion, that when God gives you a chance, when He opens the door for you to make it to the next paradigm, to make it out of that world and step into a new level, you need to appreciate the opportunity, which means you need to move on. And when you move on, not only you get out of that environment, but you need to upgrade your ideology, your philosophy, your software. You need to adjust with the new environment. Look at people like Nipsey. Look at people like King Von. They die. The reason why they die is because they refuse to leave that environment. See, if you're a grown ass man, if you're in your late 20s or 30s, and you want to subscribe to this notion of still keeping it real on the streets, I'm telling you, man, the probability that something bad is gonna happen to you, that you're gonna pay a huge price, is very, very high. Because, like I'm saying, God is giving you a chance. He's giving you a call. If you don't respond to the call, that means that you failed. That means that you have nothing left for you in this world. So it's time for you to leave this world. That's basically what he did. Because, in my opinion, when I look at the guy, when I look at Tupac, he was kind of like the almost like the Bruce Lee of the black community, because he was trying to like develop a sort of philosophy, like almost like embracing this notion of thug as a lifestyle, as a way of life. He even wrote a code about it, and he was trying to like somehow turning himself to a sort of urban legend, like an icon. Look, there's nothing wrong with you trying to like build some kind of model for your community. If you have the courage and the intelligence and the talent to go out there into the unknown and like into some uncharted zone and forge a new path for your people, I understand that. That's what true leaders do. But my point is that that kid wasn't completed yet. That kid has issues. That kid was suffering of an identity crisis. There was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of trauma trapped within in his subconscious mind. He's not a leader. He wasn't full-fledged yet. And he ended up signing with the devil, and he blew his career, and so did Biggie. So to me, like the bottom line of all this little rant is, you guys need to reassess your narrative. Go into the comment section and type in 2 feet long rant about why the delivery guy hates Tupac, or maybe he doesn't understand the culture, or maybe he just wrong. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that being in that defensive mode instead of accepting reality, instead of understanding that he was just a human being, he made a mistake, he failed as a leader, he failed as a visionary because he refused to leave the toxic environment, he refused to change his friends, he refused to move on in his life. It's not gonna solve the problem. If you're really serious about fixing the community, if you really care about the future of your people, you need to be honest with yourself. You need to drop the narrative. You need to be okay with having some sensitive conversation about the subject, because like the way how I see people reacting in the comment section is kind of a little bit scary in my opinion, because like I said, like everybody want to keep it real, until the truth is delivered, and now everybody is offended. Like, people think that the truth is convenient, the truth is easy, the truth is fun, is entertaining. No, the truth is very boring, and it's very harsh, and it's very offensive. And the key to realize when you are learning something is when you feel the pain within your ego. That's when you realize that something is actually changing within your narrative. That's all I'm trying to say. That's all what I wanted to say. Anyway, so this was my little speculation about this interview with Michael J. White. And I'll see you soon for another video.